Alrighty, guys, and here we are. We are live here for this week's PDOCS live stream, and it's actually been a couple of weeks. There's very few we miss of these throughout the year, but last Thursday, obviously being 4th of July, everybody was off, hopefully having fun and spending some time with family and friends. I know personally I had a great 4th of July, did some traveling, went down to central Connecticut, stayed at my buddy's lake house, did a little camping, took my daughter to the movies. So it was great to refresh, but back to business, and more importantly, back to delivering value to you guys. So this week's expert guest is Kyle Rodgers. You guys saw me talk about him and promote him a little bit last few days, and I'm super stoked to have him on. What we're really going to cover here today, as you guys saw, if anybody saw the post and the topics, is joint ventures and cross promotions, and how Kyle's using that as his main scaling and acquisition approach, and how he's doing some things that a lot of the market isn't and having success with it. So it's always good to get with other experts that are doing trending things that are a little different from what you might be doing now to try to get clients yourself. Anytime we can drop some new strategies and values. So Kyle, thanks for coming on. And first off, how was your 4th of July weekend, you and the family? I saw some pictures, but how was it?
Yeah, man, it was a blast. We're in Kansas City, and I was hanging out with my buddy Chad Lauer and set off some fireworks, had a barbecue. Good time, good family time, good time to disconnect. That's important. You got to have that balance.
Nice. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, actually, I'm pretty positive, but you kind of have that entrepreneur lifestyle where you travel around, right? You live and work out of the RV or the mobile home.
Yeah, I call myself the adventurepreneur. I travel the world full time with my wife and 2 kids. I got a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old, so they get to experience road schooling, where they can see what they're learning firsthand, and they can actually touch history. And it's just such an amazing thing. It's such an amazing experience. I've got my whole team who's remote. My operation is remote, and we just live, man. We travel for fun. A lot of people are like, why would you do that? Do you have to do that for work? Because they don't really understand why. I'm like, I do it for fun. We're looking for a house right now to have a home base, but we probably won't even be there much.
I love it. That's actually one of kind of my retirement goals. Right now, I still have kids local in school, split custody going between homes. So I can't do that and have my kid with me all the time. But once my youngest one is growing out of high school, my goal is, or one of my plans is to buy a motor home and kind of travel the country and work remote. So I love it. That's right up my alley too.
Yeah, thanks, man. We did Europe as well. We lived in Europe for some time, and we were in Italy, we were in Croatia, Prague, and France.
Oh, sweet. I didn't even know that. That's badass. Awesome, man. So yeah. Let's start off with, how about introducing a little of your backstory to the audience, where you came from, some of the success you have, and kind of what you're doing now, and then we'll get into today's topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for being here, guys. I am super stoked to just bring the fire. My goal here is to solve your lead generation problems forever. After today, you never have to worry about leads ever again. And you're going to get the most quality, warmed up leads. And we're going to help you build this referral network of people who you've built goodwill with, who are just going to spoon feed you the best quality leads you can imagine.
Love it. Love it. Let's get a little of your backstory and kind of, what you've done throughout your entrepreneurial journey and some of your successes, and then we'll dive right into that stuff. I love that.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been in direct sales, commission-only sales for 13 years now, and built commission-only sales teams. And I started out through the school of hard knocks, literally knocking on doors. So I was on the street just grinding, and that's where I had my humble beginnings. And I learned more during that time than I have ever since going online and being in the expert space and being part of different programs and learning the high ticket sales realm. None of it compares to what I was able to learn when I was out there on the road. There's something special about being able to knock on a stranger's door. You just drop into any random neighborhood and you can make friends. You can have people inviting you inside. Now, at first, you have people that are barely peeking through the door or speaking through the wall at you, and they're looking at you as an enemy or some person trespassing on their property. And then if you're able to transmute that energy and create this micro relationship, you can connect with people on a deep level in a very short amount of time. And I have people invite me in and cook me dinner and give me $100 tip just for talking to them. So this is real energetic sales and being able to make friends like that, person to person, face to face, looking them straight in the eyes. and that there was definitely something special about it. A lot of the times I call it the Navy SEALs of sales. And at 7 years, I worked for DirecTV, going door to door.
Yep.
And through that time, I rose through the ranks and I became number 7 top salesperson in the nation with them, in the entire nation, number 7 out of thousands of reps.
Yeah, big
company. And I won a plaque and won a cruise and went over and brought my wife on the cruise, and we had this wonderful time. But the thing is I understood I couldn't do it forever. I learned some really cool skills, like how to recruit, how to find A-player salespeople and get them aligned with my vision, and build out these commission-only sales teams. But I wasn't fulfilled, even though I was making pretty decent money for somebody doing door-to-door. But I knew I couldn't stick with that forever because it's door-to-door, right? I knew I had to build a legacy and do something better with my life. So I had a couple friends in different fields, and I was kind of experimenting with ideas of what opportunities I could take out there. One of them was medical sales, going and selling medical devices. Another one was insurance brokers, real estate brokers, and I finally got into the world of real estate investing. And that's where I chose to really dive deep and build that up. And I got into that just because of the money. That's all I cared about, was I just want to be in the highest paid sales position possible. But through that journey, I realized that it wasn't about the money. That's not what was fulfilling me. Yep. I wasn't getting what I was looking for in that. So I discovered Russell Brunson, I discovered Russell Brunson, ClickFunnels, and this whole world. And I read Expert Secrets, and I just fell in love immediately and just went hard and all in on that.
That's awesome. That's funny. I got it. It's one of my on my desk, like refer back to, that I have notes and shit in there. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well said.
Scribbles. Yep.
It's a go-to for sure. I love the verbiage you use there, which I'm hoping people picked up on. I just want to reiterate. You said, I knew I was not going to be able to sustain this. I knew I wasn't fulfilled and I had to create a legacy. So even just that mindset and that phrasing, a lot of people either A, aren't confident and don't know that, or B, never even think about like the legacy and the impact and the fulfillment. They're only thinking about the money. So what made you kind of walk that balance and realize the difference?
So it really started with my door-to-door days, because there's some days where I'd make $800 in one day in just like 4 hours knocking doors. And then there was other weeks, I would go an entire week without making a dime. And you really have to learn how to control your energy and your mindset throughout those low times and throughout those slumps. And you got to be able to pull yourself out of these slumps. And I didn't always have a good leader. I didn't always have a good coach in that place. So I discovered Anthony Robbins and Jim Rohn and a lot of the greats. Grant Cardone was another guy that I listened to a lot of the times. And whenever I felt really low and really defeated, and I'm just sitting there with my shoulders down, my head down, and just in the hot sun, just devastated. I'm like, man, this sucks. I feel like I'm a slave. I feel like I'm a slave to this work. I'm just literally working for free. And in those moments, I would pop in some headphones, listen to some Jim Rohn and some Anthony Robbins, and it would lift up my energy. And I noticed they have this magical ability to completely transform my state from where I was to where I wanted to be. And it gave me that extra push, and it would pull me out of countless slumps to where I'd go and kick ass again because of these amazing people and the amazing things that they had to say. And that's when I started to really fall in love with the industry. And then when I discovered Russell Brunson, and I found out about him through Grant Cardone, because I used to watch Young Hustlers. He has this podcast called Young Hustlers that he does with Jared. And that was a great show. But one day they were talking about Russell Brunson, and they had him on. And I was like, who is this guy? And I knew that I had to get in on that world, because I saw that he has this community of millionaires who are all value-driven, impact-driven, and relationship-driven. And they're just helping each other rise up. And that's what I was all about. Like, yes. And hearing stories, hearing people's backgrounds where they had to overcome extreme adversity and to create this success. And then they're helping other people achieve that same success that they did. And when I saw that, I was like, this is it. This is the industry I want to be a part of.
Awesome. That's cool. That's cool. You mentioned a couple of things, and then we'll get into bold promise you made, which I love it. Solve anybody watching's lead generation problem and give them warm leads. So we'll get into that here one more second. I just want to touch on something you said that I can kind of relate to because I think you said you sold for, was it DirecTV or
DirecTV?
I sold for Comcast, and I also did insurance door-to-door sales knocking. So what I can relate to there, and what I think the power of what you said there is, like, I learned more there than a lot from like a lot of these other maybe high-ticket programs or gurus or what have you. I agree, because what they don't really teach you, or what you need, regardless of if you're door knocking or in the online spaces, you need that work ethic. You need to understand how to relate to people, connect, to get them to open the door. Because I think when anyone starts door to door, Kyle's probably happened to you. Probably got a few doors slammed in your face, right? Get off
Oh
my
yeah,
lawn, get off my
guns
property,
pulled on
and
me.
it discourages you, and you walk away with your tail between your legs for a minute. But what I learned in a very short, simple read that anybody watching this that's been following me for a while has probably heard this referred to in one of my other conversations. But I had a great read when I was doing that door knocking called Go for No. The destination is yes. Right. And it made you realize, like, I need X amount of no's before I get a yes. Any sales industry, there's going to be more no's than yeses. People that, generally speaking, don't close at 80-90%. The industry standard in high tickets somewhere around 20% for a decent closer. Right. And there's a reason for that. So once I realized, oh, okay, I need 8 no's to get my yes, let me go knock on 8 doors, have them yell at me, whatever. It's the law of averages, but I did it with a much better attitude.
Yeah, I was about to say, dude, I'm so glad you said. I was going to say, hardcore guys like us know about this thing called the law of averages. And we're going around, we're looking for cars in driveways, we're looking for lights on, and we're walking. We're cooking down that road and going as fast as we can to get as many no's as we can, because we know that the more no's you get out of the way, the next one has to be a yes. The universe will literally reshape reality to give you a yes if you get so many no's.
So true. Exactly. And I always tell people getting into sales, especially early on, especially more in-person sales. I mean, it does relate to any sales, but I always tell them to read that. I want to say it's like less than 100-page read, but it was just so, because the way it just twists your mindset into being positive about them instead of negative, like you said, changes your whole energy when you go to that next door. And that's what the people feel.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Cool. So let's get into today's topic a little bit. Joint ventures, cross promotions. Why don't we first off with you talk a little about the separation between the two? Because I think a lot of people think it's the same when they kind of have their own place, right?
Yes. So for me, it's all about collaborations and cross promotions. We've been able to get to 2.5 million in 3 years through no paid advertising. We don't run paid ads. We don't do anything else aside from this stuff right here. Just pure collaboration and cross promotion. And I've helped several people reach 6 figures within just the first couple of months by leveraging this technique. So when you understand that you don't have to build your own river of traffic, there's already raging rivers of traffic all around you. All you got to do is plug in, then a lot of things start to change for you.
Great point. So talk about that a little, because I totally agree. I know what you're talking about, how to plug in. I'm always seeing opportunity when I'm scrolling my social media, whether it's competition or competitors' ads, whether it's organic posts, whether it's groups. There's so much different opportunity. But talk a little about that raging river of traffic and how people tap in.
Yeah. So the first time I heard about it was with Russell Brunson talking about the Dream 100.
Mm-hmm.
But I had no idea how to go about it. So in the beginning, I was looking at this like digital doors. I looked at Facebook and Facebook accounts and different profiles out there as doors. So I'm going into other people's groups and I'm reaching out to people one-on-one and getting them into conversation, getting them to agree to go on a booking, and then working on closing them. And once I figured that out, once I cracked that code, I told my wife, I'm like, we figured it out. We're made our first dollar online. Now let's take our plan of traveling the world full time and let's collapse time to make that happen now. And I convinced her to sell everything that we owned, fit the rest of what we owned into backpacks, and go travel across Europe and go on this huge adventure that we're still on today. And she was the setter at first. She was the appointment setter, and same thing as like digital doors. So we took this door-to-door mentality and brought it to the online space, reaching out one person at a time and trying to convert one person at a time. And it created a lot of pain for us. Sounds awesome to some people. They're like, oh, okay, that's easy to make money. And it doesn't work as well these days as it did back then. And even back then, it was a grind. So the thing is that we started to travel around and do a lot of content. And our Instagram started to look really good. And our Facebook content started to look amazing. But behind the curtain, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. We were actually getting our teeth kicked in a lot of the times. And, we'd go travel around, make sure that we're getting our content in, but it started to feel like a chore. And the thing is behind the curtain, my wife was working 8 to 10 hours a day setting. And then I was doing the closing and working on fulfilling clients and stuff like that. So I was working my ass off. And then our daughter, who was 4 at the time, her name's Eve. And she would sit in a corner on a tablet for hours and hours and hours just alone. She started to get lonely. My wife started to get depressed. And it was not what we had in mind. It's not what we pictured when we first came into this industry. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to rescue my wife from this position, and I'm going to replace her. I'm going to essentially clone what she's been able to do and find other 100% commission only appointment setters. And that's what I did with DirecTV. So it was like a light bulb went off. I'm like, oh, why don't I just do that and start recruiting hustlers to use their own accounts, use their own profiles to go get deals for us. And we were paying them commission. There was no base pay. And it worked out well for me. I was feeling good about it. My wife was feeling good about it because she was replaced. But I was going through people like crazy. That churn was bad because now all I did was take an ineffective method and gave it to somebody else to do. And I didn't feel good about that either. So I became obsessed with, how do I make these guys 6 figures? How do I bring these setters to 6-figure incomes? How can I help them be way more effective to where we're all winning? And that's when I started to dive deep in Russell Brunson's Dream 100 strategy. And I gave each one of them a Dream 100. And the philosophy behind that, guys, is you make a list of 100 people that are influencers, that have audiences. And if only one of them said yes, then it would change your life and your business forever. So that's what I had them do. Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, so they can either grind and work on getting one lead at a time, or they can reach out to influencers. And if they get one influencer to say yes, that's 10, 20, 50, 100 leads all at once, just from that one yes. And through that journey, they actually got somebody, his name is Joe McCall. He's a 2 Comic Club award winner. Back then he was, and now he's in multiple awards. But back then he was like the guy for me. He was on my list. And they got his attention, and he said yes, because we led with value. We're like, hey, we want to promote you. We want to give you access to the software. We normally charge for it. We're going to give it to you for free so you can get some results from it. And by leading with giving, this is a tactic, guys. This is a nugget. By leading with giving and then asking to promote them first and giving them a gift, like a software that you normally charge for, and you just give it to them for free, or maybe you give them a free consultation or something, but give. And then you're going to get yeses, and it worked. I couldn't believe it. My heart started racing. He said yes. And I'm like, yeah. So I went on, I spent time on his podcast, and he showed his phone, showed the result that he was getting from my software. And things started to blow up for us. And he posted it on his YouTube channel as well. But from that one interview that I did, one person said yes. And we did $75,000 in revenue from that interview. And then because it was living on YouTube, we would get sales consistently for years because it's evergreen.
Yep. So you're creating an immediate stream of revenue as well as a passive that's going to keep converting down the road, and every month, every week, what have you, depending on how many views it's getting.
Yeah, exactly. So then we just took this. We're like, okay, we're trying a bunch of different things, but this is the thing that's working. So we decided to go all in and double down on that. And that's how we scaled out. Start hitting $100,000 months.
That's awesome. That's funny. I have that book right there, just not running my reach, the Dream 100, Dana Derrick. So that was an early read for me, and that's always been. What I would reiterate about that, or what I would add to what Kyle said, is think big when you do these too. Don't think that these people are out of reach. I mean, I actually tried to Dream 100 Russell Brunson, sending him a gift and trying to have him plug some of my stuff. Didn't work out, but I don't care. Like, I would have never, you know what I mean? Take your shot. Go for some of the big people. That's what Russell had talked about as well when he first started trying to build these big partnerships. He never thought certain people would say yes. Tony Robbins, for example, right? He didn't know he was going to collaborate with him, but you go for the bigger ones, and you'd be surprised, because that's another thing I teach with some of my other clients, is all the mutually beneficial partnership outreach strategy. Very similar to the Dream 100, just a little more B2B fashion than B2C in terms of how you relate or do your outreach. And that's, I always tell people, think big. Like if you're going for brick and mortar retailers, think Costco, Walmart, Target, think big. Start with the big ones. You'd be surprised because they need help with this stuff too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think people get overwhelmed or a little in awe about like going after somebody that maybe they idolize or they learned from in the past. It's like, you know what I mean? That person could very well have an audience, or you might have a product that solves a problem or delivers value. And like you said there, Kyle, always lead with value and deliver something. I always say kind of deliver value with no expectation of return. And that's when I've had the most return and the most, just like good juju come back to me with people, like you said, do an interview, deliver a lot of value, a quick 75 grand in the bank.
Yeah. Now here's another tactic for you guys. The thing is back then I was only hitting about $5,000 to $6,000 months, and it's like we're barely getting traction. Then I got the team on, and then after I got the team on, we were at about $8,000 to $10,000 months, and we were small, very small compared to somebody like Joe McCall, and I didn't have an audience, I didn't have a huge group, but I was very active in other people's groups. And I'd give value and I'd sit there and ask curious questions. I was like the cool person at the party to where everybody just wanted to have a conversation because I was just there to hang out because I loved the people and I loved the space that's in. So by doing that, I was able to start to borrow other people's audiences. So I would say, hey, I want to interview you. I'm still working on growing my own audience, but I'm part of several other communities, really high quality people in there. They allow me to post my interview, but you'd be down to come on and give some value. And then I can get you exposure within these communities that I'm a part of.
100%. And as a byproduct of that, you're also growing your network and, getting more followers and more people following your content and what you're doing. You said something earlier about and I think was interesting, like you started traveling, you started creating great content. And then it's not always that shiny, happy rainbows behind the scenes, right? Things weren't going, you were getting a little bit of burnt out. Your wife's working 8 to 10 hours. So kind of that content versus reality balance. I don't necessarily, you can dive into that a little, but what do you think what would you give recommendations or suggestions for anybody watching in terms of content that doesn't feel like a chore? That's the word you mentioned. That felt like a chore, right? So content that doesn't feel like a chore, but still will, craft engagement or, elicit responses. What would you give for some advice there?
That's a great question. I think a lot of people get intimidated with using other people's groups because they're told to go give value and to create these value posts that blow everybody's mind, and they just don't have the confidence built up yet. Or they don't want to be preachy. They don't want to go into this group as a stranger and just start preaching at everybody like, who's this guy trying to give value? So at first, just hang out. Just create posts that create engagement. Use a curious question. Hey, what's your favorite type of lead generation? Or what's your favorite platform to do ads? Something that's just going to cause conversation, and you'll end up building a following and warming up that group. And they're going to get to know you because you're facilitating these conversations with curious questions. So that's something that we leaned into quite a bit.
Great point. I mean, a lot of what you're going back to is what I preach and what I know works as well. And what helped me also transition is relatability. That's what a lot of this keeps coming back to. So you and I both had some similar past experiences in terms of the type of work and companies we worked for, and then making that transition online. But you do notice a lot of your expertise, if you were good in sales or service or whatever in the corporate world, transfers to online. And you just have to figure out that balance and that. But the one thing that always worked for me for 20 years, I think I talked about a little this when I was on your show a couple of weeks ago, but for 20 years, I worked as a hybrid service and sales rep for an industrial laundry company. And what was my key to success and why I won awards and had the best retention in the company was because of my relatability. I went in like people's friends. I didn't try to upsell. I didn't try, hey, is there anything I can improve this week? What can I do better for you guys? Right? Yada, yada, yada. I just came in, always coming from a place of service leads to good rapport. And then when you have something, then I could go to my client, right? In that niche, it was kind of cool because I went back to the same companies each week. So I'd see this client 52 weeks a year, right? Much easier to build up relatability, no doubt. But then I could just walk in and be like, hey, man, we just got this new promotion. I'd love to throw this in your bathroom and see if it helps freshen it up a little. Let me just put it on your wall as a free sample. Okay, sure. Just because I built that rapport, boom. And then as you know, with anything, when you sample a product, 80%, 70% of them stick in certain industries. So but once you build that relatability, you just have carte blanche, come in, hey, what's up, buddy? I got this new thing. Can I try it out? Put it on your wall and just give me some feedback next week. And then next week, hey, can I just throw this on your bill? It's $5 a week or whatever. Much different industry, right? Let's take it, monthly recurring or weekly recurring revenue, but every dollar counts in any business. But yeah, like I think a lot of this comes back to relatability. And that's a lot of what you're talking about. So when you're going to create content, especially not per se on your timeline, but in other groups, go in and be relatable first. Drop a little intro about yourself, some background, a relatable question. Sometimes it can even be outside of the digital world. Go in and, hey, what's your favorite movie? Whatever, and have a little conversation that just sparks up some engagement. So I love what you're talking about. It's kind of what I preach.
Yeah.
Tell me about
Awesome, man.
some strategies. Oh, did you have something there?
No, I just said awesome.
Tell me about some strategies specific to cross promotions or some examples that people can do. Is let's say they don't have a big audience or following yet.
Yeah, so post swaps are great. Now, if you are reaching out to somebody that they don't necessarily want to do an interview with you, or maybe their audience is a tad smaller than yours or just as big as yours, and you don't want to do a ton of interviews. Maybe you only want to do one interview a month. That's fine. There's something called post swaps. This is like I give Raymond an article, a post copy, and he posts it on his wall and tags me in it. And then I get leads from that. I get leads from the engagement. Raymond gives me a post copy. I post it and tag him in. And then we're just going back and forth and cross promoting that way. So that's a great way to do master classes together. You do a joint master class, which essentially is a webinar. Do webinars together. You create a joint offer to where you combine your offers and create some kind of evergreen funnel that you guys are just going to continuously over time send traffic to. Integration marketing, to where you create modules, you create video modules within each other's membership sites. So you're always getting access to each other's paid members. That's another one.
What
So there's all kinds of
again?
Integration marketing.
I don't know if I heard it in that term. I've done it before, but I don't know if I heard it in that term.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. Fun stuff. And there's this one guy that I helped. His name is Brandon Lee, and this is my favorite success story out of all of them. Brandon Lee is from Venezuela. And that's the home of Caracas, which is the murder capital of the world. It's like a war zone there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, super violent. And he just grew up there and wanting to come to the U.S. for a better life. It was a dream of his. Finally, he achieved it, and he felt safe for the first time in his life. He was away from the violence. But he immediately hit a brick wall when he realized that the U.S. was not without its own struggles. And he struggled financially. He struggled to put money on the table. He could only, as an immigrant, he could only get minimum wage jobs, and he was just going through the ringer. And he wanted something more. He realized that if he wanted to achieve the American dream, he had to become his own boss and start his own business. So he went around and consumed as much information off of YouTube as he could. He bought a couple low-ticket courses, like $1,000, $2,000 courses, and he was in these paid member communities and giving it as his all. He gave everything he had into this, and he went an entire year, a whole year, without making a single dime. They make one sale.
But he stuck with it?
Yeah, barely. So by the time he got back to me, he was like, Kyle, I'm burnt out. I'm going to try one last thing, but after that, I'm done, dude. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's like I already spent all the money on these courses, and I'm just not getting traction. And he realized that what I had was exactly what he needed, but he couldn't afford it. So he went out and borrowed money to get in my program. He borrowed the money. He joined my program. And I taught him how to use his paid member community. All these courses that he bought that he wasn't getting a return on, I told him, go back in there and start networking with everybody, because those are all buyers.
Correct.
Right? Get as many buyers in your circle as possible, and they know other buyers. And he went and implemented that. And within 3 weeks, his first 3 weeks of my program, he hit 6 figures.
Wow. That's awesome. See, that's such a good point. A lot of people don't realize how much of a warm network that they have, people that are already connected to, and they might not even realize it. That's a warm network if you have some type of affiliation or connection. It's not necessarily hot, but cold means you've never seen this person brand new, right? Like cold is just, boom, I don't even know this person before I'm sending it. So like utilizing, especially what Kyle mentioned, any other paid communities that you bought courses from, paid group memberships, paid school communities, whatever. I don't care if it was $7 to get in or $7,000 to get in. Those are buyers, like you said. And that's really how I landed my first few clients. When I first launched my first offer ever, me and my partner, Jesse, in 2020, our first 5 clients came out of a community we paid $15,500 to get into. And people were in there still struggling, not getting results, that were paying 5 figures for a course, and not even $1,000 or $2,000. We've all seen this. And people always say, yeah, I learned something, but I didn't make money. It's like, okay, so they can't really say it was a scam, but they also, if they didn't get a return or didn't hit the desired outcome, it wasn't a great overall result for the customer experience. And that's what I started to realize. So I started to craft my offers, reverse engineer them off. What's the result or the outcome? Now, how do I best deliver that? And that's all that really matters when you're crafting these things and putting people through here.
Exactly.
So yeah, great point. One thing I would like you to touch on really quick that I think you're in a lot of groups, you have a lot of similar connections to me. We're in a lot of the same circles and see similar content. But one thing I think is putting a little bit of a black cloud in the industry right now in terms of collaborations is a lot of people are saying, I'm not accepting these collaboration DMs anymore. There's a lot of bait and switching and going on where someone's offering to collaborate and then tries to get you on a strategy session, right? So can you talk a little about the tactics, like what you're seeing in the market that you stay away from in terms of what might not be ethical or what might, can you talk about that a little? Because I think it's powerful right now.
Yeah, that's something that absolutely drives me nuts, and I stand against in a very passionate way, is do not do that, because not only are you going to just destroy this method, right now people are still open to collaborations, but if people keep doing that, it's just going to become another spam method and everybody's going to ignore it. So absolutely don't do that. It's not good for the method. Number two, it's not good for you. It's a waste of time. If you use collaborations just to get one lead out of it, you're missing the point. You want to use collaboration so you get one person to say yes, and then you get 50, 100, or 1,000 leads from that person actually promoting you. You want to build up this referral network, build up goodwill, and leverage as much as you can, because if you can make moves that create leverage, then you're going to be able to get up to speed way faster. Versus if you're just in a hustle or grind, you might as well be sending cold DMs and trying to sell people if that's going to be your approach.
Totally. No, you said it very well. And that's how I feel about it too. I think the more people that talk about it and more people that hear different points of views, because I definitely see people that are getting burnt out by this, that are already becoming, resistant to that. And again, there's always going to be people that do things with the right intent or the right approach that is ethical, that is coming from value, that's relational. And there's going to be people that try to shove it down your throat. One's kind of appreciated and one is pretty frowned upon. I always say when you're sending out messaging or connections, if you don't like when it happens to you, don't do it in your stuff. For instance, like if somebody sends me a friend request and then they're in my DMs within 5 minutes, I usually know it's some kind of pitch or copy and paste message. That kind of just rubs me the wrong way. So when I send a request, I wait a day or two before I send my initial outreach message. I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, what I just said, I hate it when people accept my request and they're in my DMs in 5 seconds. Number two, it gives that prospect or that other person you connected with a day or two to maybe see your most recent story, post, go cruise your timeline, as most people do. So then when you do that outreach message, it actually hits a little better because they feel a little more related to you. So those are just some things right off the top of my head. But really quickly to recap, what I want to take away from this is some of the implementable tactics. And more specifically, I want to give you guys a little approach and then hear Kyle's talk on this. But I think one of the biggest things he dropped that I want you guys to be able to execute on is the post swaps. That's something everybody can do and you don't have to do the interviews. So it's more universal to everybody's personality, right? Some people, like you said, Kyle, are more shy about being on camera or only want to do it at limited times, whatever. So what Kyle meant when you post swap and you do this, number one, you could be doing that with 10, 20, 30, 40 different people, right? Where they're swap posting your stuff, you and them. So it doesn't mean just one person and stop at that. Number two, what he means by how that gets you leads is if I was to give Kyle some content, he posts it in his network, wherever, and then I get 18 likes and 13 comments, then I go cruise over those profiles. If they seem like my ideal clients and people I might want to work with, I'm going to shoot them a friend request and I'm going to start my own DM outreach approach that I would do regardless. But now these people have already seen content, been tagged. It's a more warmer approach than just straight cold. By either liking, sharing, or commenting, they're saying that in some way, shape, or form, I agree with you, or I want to know more, or this guy knows what he's talking about, right? That's kind of what they're telling you there. But anything you'd like to add to that? I just wanted to make sure they were clear on like the approach.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we were talking about cold leads versus warm leads. This is transferred authority and transferred credibility. If they see you with that person that they've been following for years, they know, like, and trust that person and built an authentic relationship that can't be faked with paid ads. Like you can do paid ads to grow your audience and kind of force it, but doing organic marketing is the most authentic thing that you can do online. And you can get all of that transferred over to you in instant if you're seen with that person.
100%. Not to put you on the spot, I usually ask people this before, and if the answer is no, totally cool. But I give every guest the opportunity to do, and I'm not sure if you have. I know you have tons of stuff, but I'm not sure if you have like a specific resource or guide or checklist. But do you have any type of resource we could give them, and I could put in the description here on YouTube as well as under the video here on Facebook, where this is posted? Anything we can give them in terms of a PDF or a checklist when it comes to like this lead gen problem and some of the stuff we talked about with Jay's Visa cross promotions?
Oh yeah, I come with a gift for sure. So you guys, you're hearing this and you're like, man, this is great. Kyle told me to reach out to any courses, paid memberships I've been a part of, and then you start to think, and your wheels are spinning, and now you're thinking about paid school communities that you're a part of, and all of these different places that you can tap into, but you don't necessarily know what to say. You don't know how to get that yes to the collaboration. I have a framework. I have a script for you guys. It's the collaboration script. I call it the Zero Resistance Messenger script, and it's going to be everything that you guys need to land your own cross promotions.
That's awesome. Great. So shoot that over to me, Kyle, in our DM, and I'll make sure I get that added under the description and in the link wherever anybody's viewing this. That was awesome. Thanks you for your time and your expertise today. And as Kyle mentioned, it's something you guys will probably see in the next handful of weeks. He and I are discussing some cross promotions and ways we can add value to each other's networks and communities. So you might see something come out with us doing one of these exact tactics he just talked about. Because one thing I love about Kyle and the people I try to bring on, and similar to my thoughts on this, is we actually drink our own Kool-Aid. What we're teaching is what we're doing. We're not doing this and then teaching that. That's another thing, that I think is refreshing for the industry. There's a lot of people that are, not drinking their own Kool-Aid, for lack of a better term, and that leaves a bad taste in my mouth personally. So again, if I like it, I'm not going to do it in my business.
Agreed, 100%. And I was already thinking the same thing. There's a ton of alignment for us. So many different ways that we can go with this. So yes, you guys will see me and Raymond doing some big things together.
Awesome, man. Thanks again for your time. Everybody, down below in the description, I'm going to have the link to catch Kyle's Facebook profile. We'll have the link to the collaboration script that he talked about, that I think will be so great, because I think a lot of people, even once they get, like you said, the brain starts rolling, they're like, oh, there are all these opportunities, but what do I say, right? Having something that's proven, tried and tested, and then you tweak it a little. I always say with any script, you always want to tweak it a little to your verbiage, your language, right? Your offer. I talk to people in a white collar, B2B, different than I might talk to blue collar workers and such. So craft your messaging to fit your market and your objective, but within the framework that is given to you. I kind of say that regardless if it's my stuff, someone else's, right? You always want to make it yours as well. But having that framework and that proven script that's tried and tested will be great. So we'll have all that in the description. Kyle, thank you again for your